Hey everybody,
Hello,
this is Hob,
it's Jamie.
and this is Dutch and
Dungeons
Dragons.
Dutch. Dragons, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore.
Just tired.
It's one of them days.
So this is Dutch and Dragons, the weekly show where we talk about role-playing games, game mastering, and we answer questions out of the pink box. So without any further ado,
First question.
da, 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 da.
How do you maintain immersion in your game?
Ooh, that's tough. There are a lot of ways that you can do it, actually. One of the things I try to do, and this is harder because we use a virtual tabletop, but I try to limit the lookups. So if there's a question about a rule, I generally try and make a ruling about it and then look it up later so that we're not pausing the game to try and decide what's going on. I also try and use props every once in a while. Descriptive language is always super duper helpful. You can't always... when you're using a virtual tabletop, it is a little bit harder if you don't have players that are willing to put their suspension of disbelief in place to really make that happen. There is one thing I do. I don't use the map at all when I am describing things or having role-playing interactions, and that seems to help quite a bit. The maps are only really used for combat and combat interactions, or interactions that require specific tracking of player location. Not necessarily for combat purposes, but for purposes of, like, if they're chasing a thief through the city.
Chase the thief.
You know, and I need obstacles and that kind of stuff, and I need to be able to track where they're at. It might not be a combat interaction in its entirety, but I need to have accurate tracking of where they are in some of those instances, not always. What about you?
Well, I try to stay in character as the DM as much as possible and to help encourage my players to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
a good
really
plan.
Sometimes, like, different sorts of music, sound effects, you can do all sorts of stuff to kind of help get everyone in the mood of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But some of really good tricks are just to keep the role playing going, limit the lookups, and use as much ambiance as you can or you want.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that the immersion, I mean, it is important, but I don't get too upset when it is broken, because it gets broken. It happens.
Yeah. Next
I'm
question.
Go next question, yeah. Next question. I'm here, I promise.
Did you get immersed in that?
Yeah, I did. I got immersed
good job.
in that.
Good job.
What is player agency and why is it important? Ooh, good question.
You want to tackle this first? Give it a go?
Well, I mean, player agency is just the ability for the players to make decisions in the game. I mean, if you're gonna go to the simplest about it, that's what it means, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you get a little bit deeper into it, it is the ability for the players to feel like they have real choice in their interactions in the game. So not just that they have the ability to make choices, but the
choices matter.
That the choices matter, and that their choices are important to the game, and why that's important we'll touch on in a minute. Good.
What can we get started?
Small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer.
Small ice triple shot coconut milk caramelizer.
Uh huh.
All right.
And a small iced German chocolate mocha with coconut milk.
Anything else you guys do?
No, that's it.
Alright, you guys be doing cash or card?
Card. That would be me. And
Yeah, hang on one sec.
You guys are good. It'll be 10, 20.
Backwards. I'm backwards today. It's just a backwards kind of a day.
It's all good. What are you guys up to?
So, why is player agency important? The reason that player agency is important is because, like I said, your players need to feel like they have choices and that those choices matter in the game.
A lot of times it's like you go here and you save a person, yeah, that's great. Or you go here or an escort or fetch quest. Like, these quests can get really dull really fast. But if those choices do something in the world, like, okay, I went and I grabbed this person and I escorted them, and that was kind of boring, but it turns out that they're like some world-renowned weapon maker, and a couple of days later, an awesome sword shows up on your doorstep because you saved this person. Like, that can be a real great motivator to use within your games to keep your players interested.
Absolutely.
In some of these littler quests, is that not saving Timmy from the well has real consequences inside the world, as well as saving Timmy.
Right. So it's the reason it's important is because it's part of what makes your world feel alive to your players. And that actually feeds back into immersion, funny enough.
Yeah.
So it's a good follow-through question. All right, next question.
Next question. How long are your games and how often do you play? Makes me want to say, how long is a string?
Well, no. So if we're talking about like game session, game sessions, I try and keep those between 3 and 4 hours. And we usually play every week, sometimes not that often, depending on our group's schedules. Some of our group are very, very busy during certain times of year, and so they can't always make it. And so then we go into like one-offs, one-shot games, stuff like that. We'll play tabletop board games and things like that.
It's hard when your players are all adults and they have to do the adulting.
Yes, absolutely. For our campaigns, if you're talking about like the length of a campaign, how long is a string is very appropriate.
I mean,
it could be never ending. Yeah, it's as long as it takes. I can speak today, really, I swear. It is. It's as long as it takes your players or our players to get through that campaign, that specific storyline. We had one that ran the better part of 2 years, I think.
This is a repeat.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we did.
We found a repeat. All right, next question.
Next question that's not a repeat is, what makes D&D different from other games? The player, it's everybody participates, which, I mean, that sounds weird because in most games everyone participates, but it's and I think we say it all the time, this is a collaborative storytelling game.
So
which is really cool.
I think it's a collaborative storytelling game. I also think one of the things that makes Dungeons and Dragons different are its origins, because it originally started out as as kind of an add-on to military tactical reenactment type games.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, and in this, anything can happen. That's not there's no specific outcome that is expected. Your players drive the story, and you as the dungeon master or game master of a Dungeons and Dragons game have to be able to let your players drive the story while also adapting the story to what your players do. So it becomes more complex, it becomes more involved, I think, than your typical board game would become.
Yeah. Well, and then unlike a video game where
everything's on rails.
You're playing through a particular story. The story can change.
Yeah.
All the time, and it does.
Absolutely.
Be prepared. How can you, as a DM, help your PCs develop their characters, and should you? Yes, you should, sort of, kind of, maybe. Yeah, that doesn't help. Especially if I have new players who have never played before, I tell them to think of their character And then I pull up those stupid online quizzes that are everywhere, like, what's your favorite color? When was the last time you cried? Or do you ever cry? Do you like pizza? What's your favorite? You know, they sound like really stupid things, but I say go and look at some of these as your character. Just because that's going to help you get to know your character. Do they have brothers and sisters? Like, I ask them questions, I find little questionnaires just to help them get an idea of some of the things to think about. But I say knowing the character's personality and some of their background is great, but don't make it so rigid that the character has no room for growth.
And honestly, with no joking whatsoever, what she said, the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, I think, if I remember correctly, has a character background set of tables that goes into every little thing. It reminds me very much of the family and background tables and roll charts, random roll charts that were in the old Cyberpunk and Shadowrun games, and they're very, very thorough. They're full of a great deal of information.
They can be super helpful.
And they can be super helpful in developing a character's ideals and morals and upbringing and the way that they think about things, and having your players sit down and go through that and write down all of the things that they come up with, and then talk to them about it. Spend a lot of time talking to your players about it.
We're gonna grab our coffee.
So,
Alrighty, you have the caramelizer and the German chocolate muffin?
yes.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Alright, I'll grab that for you. And do you want to add stickers today?
Yes.
Of course.
Hey, Jamie.
So,
Hi.
Is that for you? You need those for
right
you?
on, right on. There you go.
Alright, this is going to be that caramelizer. And then here is that German chocolate.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Of course, have a good one, okay?
You too.
See you later.
But one of the things that I tell my parents, my players.
Oh, we're in rare form today.
I know we're really rocking this today. One of the things I tell them is, don't get stressed out if you don't have an epic backstory for your characters. Don't get too stressed out if you don't know your character from top to bottom just yet. The main thing to know about your character is, why are they here?
Why are they an adventurer?
Yeah.
That's actually probably one of the most important questions.
What is your motivation
that
for
you
going
should
out and slaying
ask your
dragons?
players? Yeah.
Yeah.
That you should ask your players, what is their primary motivation for being an adventurer? And bearing in mind that is something that may change over time for the character, and that they should be aware that it can change, that it doesn't have to stay that specific motivation, and that the whole point of the whole point of this is for the character to grow and change as time goes on.
Yeah, and I say, as long as you know that, as long as you know why your character is adventuring, I think the rest of it can come. It will come in time.
Yeah. So yes, you should help your players develop their characters. That's the short answer, the TLDR for this whole thing. Yes.
Yes. Last question?
No, we'll
maybe.
see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
What kind of things do you use to organize your campaign? Lordy.
Oh my! So campaign,
Spreadsheets?
yeah, campaign organization is a very, very personal thing. Everybody does it differently.
Everyone.
I use a combination of notebooks, really messy notes, digital information that I've entered into like half a bajillion websites, documents that I've written in Google Drive, documents that I've written in Word and have stashed into a network share. I use just about anything and everything that I can to try and organize all of my stuff
I'm
into
a big
something
fan
cohesive
of the
and
bubble
useful.
flowcharts. I'm a huge bubble flowchart person.
But it's really it's a very much a personal preference kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I think it's easier if you're running a less complex campaign. But like we have maps that we've created through random generators
History,
for entire cities.
timelines.
We have timelines in a couple of different places. We have histories. We have stories that were written by that were written about historical events.
A lot of them were about the players. One of the things I like to play with in my campaigns is how does time influence history? So a rather benign event that happened a few campaigns ago might come back as an epic tale, which is a lot of fun to kind of deal with.
It's and also your players hearing about or hearing stories about the games that they've played in, even if the stories are wildly exaggerated
inaccurate.
And inaccurate, it gives them a sense of a living world again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, like there are a billion different ways that you can do it. I like a website called World Anvil because it's system agnostic, and you can just kind of dump whatever the heck you want in there, and it's got a lot of flexibility. You can look them up on Patreon. I think they also have a subscription method. I'll put a link in the comments below for that.
I use an English 101. Like very basic college English tool called Bubble Us. It's like a little bubble flowchart thing. I love it. It works for me.
We'll get a link to that in the video description as well.
I think that's what it's called, Bubble Us.
We'll figure it out. So I mean, pick what works best for you. Really.
I would start with just one of the things I do that I think is a good idea is I take all of my characters and all of my PCs, and I actually have a folder that I keep a little tiny bio about the characters, so who they are, what they do, what their motivations are, and then I put their character sheet in there. So I always have NPCs that are ready to go, whether they're past characters that I've played, past characters other players have played, or past NPCs I've used. But it makes a really great go-to if you're looking for something like, oh, I need a priest that they can run into. Well, I have one, and I have everything about their little personality right here at my fingertips, and yeah. I like that as a...
For cities and towns and things like that, I generally keep a map, a location map, either color-coded or numbered. And then I keep a small list of notable NPCs, because not everybody is notable, but a small list of notable NPCs, shopkeepers that they might run across, villains that they might encounter, things like that, and their personalities and where I might be able to find them, where I've stored them. If I have deeper information on them, which doesn't always work. Sometimes I just can't find what I'm looking for, and then I have to make it up all over again anyhow. So, disorganized chaos, that's how.
That's how. Last question, and this just because this makes me laugh. What is the hardest thing about playing D&D? The timing. Getting your players together at the table at the same time. God damn it.
Player wrangling, yes.
Player wrangling. That is the hardest thing.
Player wrangling is absolutely the most difficult thing about playing Dungeons
Finding a night when y'all can sit down and play.
Especially when you know everybody in your gaming group are adults with jobs and kids. Well, actually, I don't think any of us have kids. That are underage, but if there are children,
kids.
If they're jobs and life
jobs
and other friends and that kind of stuff, it gets really, really hard to organize that.
So I would say once you figure out when you are going to game, that is the hardest part about D&D. Finding the when.
And sometimes you just have to set a time and see who shows up.
Yep.
But that is all the time we have for questions.
Yep.
If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoy what we're doing, please let us know. Click like, subscribe, click the little bell so that you get the little ding.
Come see us. Ask us questions.
Come ask us questions in the comments below. Tell us what you think we're doing right. Tell us what you think we're doing wrong, and we'll be more than happy to address it. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great day, everybody.